Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and I'm your host Ellie, and we have William on the phone as our co-host. And how you doing tonight, William?
I'm just frisky about everything.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope so. Uh, I looked today, and it was like, oh boy, this is going to be one heck of a show. We had a great one on Monday, and if you missed it, please go back and watch. Be sure to hit the like and the thumbs up and the bell so you'll be notified when we have shows. To start off with, on the lighter side of news on this day in history, August 21st, 1959, Hawaii becomes the 50th state. I always thought it was earlier than 1959, but yeah. So Eisenhower said, "We wish for her prosperity, security, happiness, and growing closer relationship with the other states." So Eisenhower was all ready to take in and embrace Hawaii. The other one, we got some recalls, folks. Um, BMW recalls more than 800,000 cars because of electric pump issues. They're catching on fire. We've known this is happening, but not only that, but then we have uh, NHTSA recalls over 9,000 Tesla models. Um, and what is going on with them is safety risk involving the roof trim that comes loose and flies off the car. So if you got either one of these models, the BMW or the Tesla Model X SUVs, please check with your um, supplier or some of these that deal with these cars and see if you can get you a better car or get this fixed. Uh, now, jumping on to the news, one of the big things that caught my attention today was the 800,000 job loss. And everybody's kind of saying, no, it ain't no big deal. Yes, it is. 800,000 fewer jobs than previous reported. The Labor Department finally releases key payroll data. And so we have, that is why no hire. People are going in and they're trying to get jobs and a massive amount, and they take one or two, and then they don't have no jobs left. This has put us up, I say, closer to a depression. Me and William kind of differ. I say we're in the depression. He said we're going into the depression. Um, when we have a job loss like this, folks, it's time to worry, big time. Um, Now, the other thing is the budget. The budget's coming up, and that's why these facts are coming out. They said, why did they not say anything before now? Well, when did they do all of the statistics on the budget, and they have to get real numbers. And so when they get the real numbers, that's why they say, oh, the the government is going to shut down and nobody's going to get checks. That happens every year, huh, William? I don't know how many times I warn my viewers that this is going to happen, not to worry. They're saying, no Social Security, the government's going to shut down, the military's not going to get their pay. Uh, it happens every year. And just a reminder, folks, this is coming up. So don't worry and don't fret. It's just finally the real numbers. And it just blows away Congress and Senate to where they can't handle the numbers, whether it's on for the Democrats or for the Republicans, whether it's against them, they always shut down. Always shut down. So don't worry. At the end of September, going October, November, we're going to see a government shutdown. Uh, NASA unveils mysterious space object on a galactic sprint out of the Milky Way. Now, I thought this was very interesting, folks. Let's see if I can pull this up. Uh, there she is. Here we go.
A mysterious object speeding at an amazing speed. Spotted by amateur astronauts, the object is speeding out of the Milky Way. Watch this next report to know more.
Oh yeah. Oh, of course they're going to do me with a commercial. I think they do that just so I won't do these things. Here we go.
Our cosmos is full of the unknown. The deeper we feel, the more we know about the hidden mysteries. NASA's latest discovery has ignited a wave of curiosity and speculation. A mysterious object tearing through the cosmos at an unprecedented speed of 1 million miles per hour. The object, so massive that it dwarfs Earth by over 27,000 times, is racing through space with such force that it might one day escape the Milky Way entirely. Detected using data from NASA's Wide Field Infrared Survey Explorer mission, this celestial body poses a unique challenge due to its low mass and unusual chemical composition. These characteristics suggest it could be one of the oldest entities within our galaxy.
So there you have it, folks. A brown dwarf star speeding through the Milky Way. What do you think, William? This is crazy
Yeah,
stuff.
so there's a number of different size stars. So if it's a supermassive star and it collapses, you get a what do they call it? A supernova, and it all blows apart. But if it's a smaller type sun, it just kind of burns out and starts to become a brown dwarf. But if you have a whole number of those brown dwarfs near a black hole, it looks supermassive, but all those sun type things or sun mass objects that aren't supermassive that burn down collect in that region right around that black hole, and we have a number of small black holes moving around the Milky Way, and at the center there's a supermassive black hole, and it's been hard to detect these low burning objects, these suns that are just these brown dwarfs in the past because they're so dim when they're far away. So this is interesting. They have telescopes now that they're able to start detecting these brown dwarfs at a distance around these small black holes that are orbiting around in the Milky Way.
Yeah. Now, to get on to some of this world news, now Chinese and Philippine Coast Guard ships collide near the Sabina Shoal in the South China Sea. This happened yesterday, causing damage to at least two vessels. Both sides are blaming each other for the collision. China accusing Philippines of deliberately ramming ships. Let me show you a picture of this. Uh, there you go. There's the damage. Now, we're finding out China is ramming other ships, and they're blaming the Philippines for it. William, I know you had a little bit on that. Um, but the Philippines Naval Task Force on the West Philippine Sea said two Coast Guard ships encountered unlawful aggressive maneuvers from Chinese Coast Guard vessels while en route to Patag and Lawak Islands. So here is the damage of the ships. Now, William, I know you had some on that.
So the Chinese ships are larger than Coast Guard vessels, even though the Chinese ships are being tagged as Coast Guard vessels. So they're in the destroyer class in total weight, and they're not using the sides of the ships. They're using the bows of the ships to run up over the top of the Philippine actual Coast Guard ships that are just frigates. And you can see in the damage that it's a sharp hit on the side of the Philippine ships. So they're being
they're maimed, but they're not sinking them.
right. But the point is anytime you ram a ship, that's an act of piracy, and an act of piracy by a nation state is an act of war. So China is engaging in active wars in Philippine waters, and the Philippines are a type of protectorate of the United States.
And it only, it was Taiwan ships, and now it's Philippines, because the Philippines is an ally of Taiwan, and they are protecting them as well as Japan. So not only is it Philippine, but they are bumping some of the Japan's boats. Now it's not like Yemen, where Yemen was attacking and firing upon. They're just bumping into them and saying, well, it's the Philippines that's bumping into us. And they can claim it because it's he said, she said. So when it comes to the UN or anybody that's investigating this, they can't really make a decision because, well, China says Philippines did it. Philippines says China did it. But there are more and more vessels coming up with this kind of damage, that you see on your screen there.
The important thing is, see, that's a V-type damage, so you know it was struck by the hull of a bigger ship. And anytime there's more than one ship that gets damaged, it's not an accident.
Right.
It's an accident.
So now the other thing that happened, there was a glide bomb wipes out Ukrainian brigade leaders. The night strike targeted the site of Sumy region, which is essential for Kyiv's logistics. Now, when I seen this, I went and I caught exactly what a glide bomb is. Let's get this up here. I'm getting better at this, William. There we go. So a glide bomb is what we're seeing. Now, this is it. And I got a lot more to say on this. Okay, I don't want to get it all into everything on this video, but what we're finding out is now the Russians have surrounded these troops. Now, folks, now realize this, what I seen today in the news, and it wasn't just one or two conservative sites, but I checked with some of my resources over there in Russia, and some over in Syria, because they had a little bit of info. And what I found out was they have, Russia has now surrounded these troops. And now they are to the point where they're tired of being flicked at. What I mean by that is Russia's so big that if it wanted to, it could wipe out Ukraine. And they're now thinking of, we just need to end this. William, I know you had stuff on it, but this glide bomb, it seems to wipe out the Ukrainian brigade leaders also, of what we've seen.
So the bombs they're using are massive ordnance glide bombs, meaning they drop them at 10 to 30,000 feet. The glide comes out. It basically glides at a 45 degrees down, so you get the idea. But they're 3,000-pound bombs. These are type of bombs that when they come down 150 feet in every direction direction from the center of that bomb, nobody lives.
Now,
And even if
they
you're
claimed as many as
underground,
90 troops were killed, William, including 30 higher up to the chain of command than regular soldiers.
yeah, they've got those brigades completely encircled now. So the only way for the Ukrainians to withdraw from that area is in ones and twos. There's not going to be any mass pullback. And so they've got them basically in a killing box.
The Russians' military estimated Ukrainian losses Monday is almost close to 4,000, and they push towards Kyiv with hundreds of tanks and other pieces of heavy weaponry, which were provided by Western donors, according to the Russian military. So they, like you said, they have surrounded them. Now it's up to Putin to make the decision with his military generals. Are they going to end this war, or are they going to fight back and forth, back and forth? Now, my concern, William, they may, let's say, just put a stop to it, surround these guys, put them all back into Ukraine. But when you talk about the Azov battalion, they're not going to quit, folks. They haven't quit in the last 20 years. What makes Putin think that they're going to quit now? And I think it's going to...
The only way to stop the Azov battalions is cut off all their weapons. And the only way to do that is end the government of Ukraine. So when they're talking, the Russians talk about ending this, they're talking about sacking the government of Ukraine at least, or taking over the entire area of Ukraine. So the pressure from the Russian people are to end this. And Putin and his generals are trying to push back, walk back and say, no, this is a good place that it'll put the Ukrainians in a place and Russians in a place where they'll want to negotiate. So the upper part of the Russian government is saying we want to negotiate a peace, but the people are saying end it. And when they mean end it, they mean end Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. And so we're looking at a ramp up of what Putin and his generals are going to put on this these forces inside of Russia. I think as the further they get in, William, the more Putin is just getting fed up. And I think we mentioned this the other night, where Russia is huge. It wouldn't take much just to go poof to Ukraine. The same way if Iran and if they all got together, they could put a hurting on Israel. But Russia alone is way bigger than Ukraine's army. And I get so sick of these media outlets that are saying, oh, Ukraine is winning. Ukraine is winning. Look, they got into Russia. Well, what they don't realize is when you look on the ground and you start looking and talking to generals or talking to the media over there, they're saying Ukraine isn't even close. That's the problem. We keep getting bad news over here, fake news.
So Russia has 170 million people. Ukraine has around 60 million right now. Russia has 150% of the power they had when they started the war, meaning they've rearmed plus an additional half. The Western powers have used up their ordnance by 50% and aren't replacing it at a pace that's keeping up. So if Russia decides they're going to push this thing, they can seize all of Ukraine or put the Ukrainian government out of business, meaning, bring in the heavy bombers like Bear bombers and just waste the governmental facilities and, of course, the individuals there.
Yeah. Now,
and they'll use massive ordnance. They won't use light ordnance when they do it. So Kyiv will be ruined.
Yeah. Now, I meant to bring it up before we did the show, but come to find out, there was 180 rocket counterattack that Israel hit with Iran. And what had happened was one of their administration, the top commander of Iranian Revolutionary Guard, was killed in an airstrike by a drone on the southern coast of Lebanon. Now, the details aren't all there because it only happened a few hours ago, but the frontline Israel fighters launched a second consecutive attack on the Bekaa Valley. This is in eastern Lebanon. Several towns were shaken by the explosions. And the jets targeted 4 different locations where Hezbollah had a stronghold. And basically 100 miles from the Israel border has been targeted multiple times. They've had border clashes there, and the impact in recent attacks is greater than those before that has been reported on. And basically, the weapons depots where Hezbollah has been stockpiling arms for at least 12 years, they were able to hit with precision. And Iran, the night before, the IDF targeted significant underground facilities. But now their weapons depot and the strategic airstrikes on Hezbollah's weapon depots mark a new turning point. For the first time, Hezbollah has experienced consecutive attacks on hidden underground depots. So they've been able to get ahead a little bit. But with this last attack, they were able again to take down one of the administrative's head people. So as we have seen in the past, every time one of their leaders is assassinated or killed in these bombings, we get this, or Israel gets a repercussion, and we're going to blow you up. So Iran origin in the wake of these losses, Hezbollah fired 180 rockets towards Israel within the last 24 hours. Now, these attacks aimed at areas with local civilians, because that's what they do, folks. That's what they do. They attack civilians. And basically, the rockets landed in empty fields during the assaults. Hezbollah's recent attacks have not been directed at evacuated areas. So, William, what we're seeing is they may have fired a whole bunch. Israel fired back and was able to kill a leader.
There's a turn in the war that's going on. In the past, Israel has used their aircraft and rockets so their aircraft launched rockets on specific points where they've had rocket launches from southern Lebanon, from Hezbollah, to take those out. They're not doing that anymore. They're not using rockets. They're using heavy ordnance, like 2,000-pound bombs hitting depots and hitting wherever they have underground facilities. Now, you don't have to penetrate an underground facility to take it out. All you have to do is hit it with enough concussion that it just kills everybody underground, because the ground itself will rebound from a concussion like that and just take and lift the people that are in those bunkers literally off the floor and splatter them onto the ceilings. And it's a hideous way to die, actually, because it breaks the necks, it does brain damage.
I'm sorry.
The concussion can even be so bad that it's like jarring your flesh in your skeleton so hard it'll rip the aorta from your heart. It's a brutal way to die, and Hezbollah's got it kind of coming.
Yeah. Well, you know, with Taiwan news, okay. I mean, the whole thing is, um, U.S. has shifted their nuclear strategy to focus on China, though. You know, we've been talking about this, how quiet it's been over there. I'm sorry. I got this tickle. Um, oh boy, my allergies are horrible. But U.S. shifts its nuclear strategy to focus on China. Now, classified documents have come out now that Russia, China, North Korea as main threats. Now, it's about time that they felt this way. The Biden administration approved a new nuclear strategic plan this last May designed to um, coordinate attacks from multiple adversaries. So it's not like this Biden administration has ignored over in Asia. But now, according to nuclear strategists, the latest version of specifically addressed China's rapid expansion of its nuclear arsenal, combined with Russia's and North Korea's growing nuclear capabilities. So it's become a new reality, they say. And so this week, um, Taiwan is now asking for more nuclear power because, you know, they have got the nuclear power sitting basically really close, whether it's North Korea or China. Um, and now that China's bumping boats, you know, go ahead.
Taiwan and South Korea are minutes away from destruction by nuclear weapons. We're talking under 10.
Yeah. Now,
and the U.S. forces that would retaliate against that might be 28 minutes out from launch here in the United States. And so what they're not asking for something that doesn't already exist. What they're asking for is that time, instead of being, 3 minutes away for them and 28 minutes away for the Chinese. They want that time gap to be closed. That means they want nuclear weapons closer that can be delivered quicker.
mm-hmm.
We've always when they talk about changing the U.S. posture in the Strategic Air Command and ballistic missiles out at sea, in the submarines, and of course our missile silos have always been targeted at their other nuclear adversaries, which have been North Korea, China, and Russia.
Right.
What they're talking about now is it's gone beyond just being within the military itself. The ideas are being disseminated out through Congress and through the administration that
mm-hmm.
really haven't understood this. Okay,
right.
So that's what's going on with those orders, and the other powers in the area of those nuclear weapons, i.e., Russia and China and North Korea. They want those minutes to be much closer.
Right. Well, because the U.S. Go ahead.
So, United States is the only Western power that can really deploy medium-range missiles and have absolute control of them. Meaning, it takes an act by the President of the United States to launch, even if they're in other countries like, say, Poland or Germany.
Mm-hmm.
It still requires a U.S. president and U.S. military control to allow those weapons to be used. Meaning they have the codes to launch them, but they don't share that with our allies. All right?
Right.
So the United States maintains absolute control over their military weapons. But these countries like NATO and some of the countries in and around South China Sea want those minutes to be closed up so that China doesn't feel like, well, it can probably ride this thing out by getting populations away from the cities and whatnot. So it's
Right. Now, the U.S. nuclear strategy is primary focus on Russia, like you were saying. However, China has deepened its ties with Russia, along with conventional weapons supplied by Iran and North Korea to Russia for Ukraine war, almost like China supplied not only Iran but North Korea the means to create these weapons. Now, the U.S. Is basically got to consider the possibility of a coordinated nuclear attack from any of these entities. Now, Jinping, um, China's longstanding minimal strategy has led to the rapid increase of its nuclear arsenal. Um, U.S. intelligence officials noticed this, just 2 years ago? No, I think they've noticed it a long time ago. I don't think Biden was awoken, I think is the word for it, to, oh, wait, they got nukes. No, I think we've known for 10, 15 years that China has been working with Russia and Iran and North Korea to start building up a nuclear arsenal. Because when we look at Netanyahu, William, he was warning everybody about Iran quite a few years ago.
So when we're talking about nuclear warfare, when a adversary country starts engaging that, they take the manufacturing of all their military devices, whether it be aircraft or tanks or armaments, and they spread them out very wide so that if the United States or somebody like us has to attack them, they have a lot more targets. It takes a lot more, a greater presentation of weapons to take out their military structure. And so that's what they're doing right now, is they're doing kind of a defensive thing. That typically in these countries, they want to keep their military manufacturing in a small area so they can keep secrecy being the most important part of their manufacturing. But when things become dangerous as far as the nuclear war be considered, they want to spread that all out. And so secrecy becomes less of an importance and dispersed manufacturing becomes a greater importance. So the number of targets we have in those countries increase. And, you know, the United States, we have manufacturing everywhere in the country. We don't manufacture any one part of any one system in any one area. Mm-hmm. We have it completely diffused so that our adversaries have an absolute phenomenal amount of targets for them to be able to strike. That requires a bigger force for that. And, you know, Russia's been building more weapons, and China's been building more weapons so that they have a balance of power with the United States. The United States doesn't use as big of weapons, but we have more available in theater, whereas these other countries have a lot available, but they're not necessarily in theater. They may be in storage.
Mm-hmm. Now,
and people think that that if there's a nuclear war, it's a limited nuclear war.
Right, but now the big warning, though, William, right now that Taiwan is putting out is North Korea's nuclear arsenal was once considered manageable, but now 60 nuclear weapons and the capability to produce more. North Korea, they say, this is Taiwan reporting this, now poses a significant threat, not only to them, but to the rest of the world. And the U.S. can no longer ignore the possibility of the coordinated strikes involving China, Russia, and North Korea. They also reported Russia has become increasingly volatile following a series of aggressive actions towards its western neighbor, and with like the invasion with the Ukraine. They said now Ukraine and Russia has repeatedly threatened to use nuclear weapons. Now, but the U.S. has been able to tone them down and say no. But the biggest of the report and the threat that Taiwan has put out in this article was U.S. needs to quit sleeping and wake up to North Korea and its nuclear capabilities. And we're sleeping on it. And we used to go over and we used to have uh, regular meetings with Kim Jong Un. We haven't, and during this whole Biden administration, no one has really went over there to find out what's going on. Russia has, China has, but the United States and their foreign policy, and that's kind of where I want to move to Jake Sullivan, because that even came up in the article that they were even expecting Jake Sullivan, maybe the Podestas, maybe even the vice president coming over and talking to them to get the report of what they have going on in Asia. Um, you know,
So anytime you have a totalitarian state with nuclear weapons left in a vacuum, they become increasingly paranoid. That's why we need regular contact with them, so they realize that we're not going to become an aggressor to them, so they don't have to be as paranoid. The most difficult thing in the world is having a nuclear state where they're having internal political struggles and they're paranoid. It can lead to a disaster. So we need to have regular communications with these folks and not leave them in a information vacuum.
And now you had a thing on Netanyahu. It just seemed not Netanyahu. I'm sorry, Jake Sullivan, of the lack of foreign policy that's going on, and because of his lack of experience, for one. And I remember I told you earlier he's done nothing but a desk job. He's not into war. He and the lack of has caused our oh, William, what did you say about earlier? I might as well let you just say it.
Well, Jake Sullivan is nearly the sole national security advisor of the United States right now. He's an academic, meaning that he writes his papers as white papers about national strategy. Now, he's very good at the Machiavellian part. He's very good at the diplomatic part. What he's not good at is at the military reaction to his diplomatic actions, meaning he doesn't understand the military laws that Sun Tzu wrote out, 2,000 or 3,000 years ago, which is every person in the military United States has to understand Sun Tzu. He was a great military strategist, tactician, and unfortunately, Mr. Sullivan, being as erudite as he is, just has not had to be put under those kind of pressures, and they're getting past him, beyond him, faster than he can react to them and understand them, and so it's a real problem.
Mm-hmm. And then we're looking at the state of him and Blinken looking into the ceasefire with hostages. Now we got dead hostages back. Now our concern now is if we leave these hostages, folks, they're just going to kill them off one by one. We must get in there and save these hostages, and we may make Netanyahu and Israel mad, but if we don't get in there, they're going to kill them all off. And Jake Sullivan should be a big part of this, but in between Blinken and what we see with this administration and these hostages, I call it sleepwalking. We're not only sleepwalking in Israel or Taiwan or Ukraine. This is an administration of sleepwalkers that right now they're more concerned about the election than the state of war that could be brought to our own country.
So in Israel, these dead hostages that they recovered, there's 8 of them. They found them underground, and they're trying to figure out right now whether they died as a reaction to something that happened because of Israel's attack on Hezbollah or on Hamas, or if Hamas left them to die, meaning they didn't provide them food and sustenance. If, for whatever reason, Hamas let them die or killed them, that is a war crime. Now that makes diplomacy much less involved, and it means the military will be in more control over what happens next.
Right. And you know, Netanyahu right now is saying, hold on, William. Hold on.
Is gaining power.
Okay, before you go on. Now, everybody's saying that, you know, with the ceasefire, but Netanyahu says, yeah, this is a ceasefire, but this does not mean he's going to allow this to be the end of the war, a total ceasefire. He said, no, he has to go through as planned to be able to take out these terrorists. Go ahead.
So
I hope I didn't lose your train of thought.
He's really just a spokesman at this point. He's out of the loop as far as decision making. The military is looking at this. They only have a minimal amount of time to get to those hostages that may be alive, meaning they're going to become more aggressive. As far as the fight goes, it's going to be much more violent. The people of Palestine are going to witness many more civilian deaths as they try to get to these hostages as quick as they can. But because Hamas is doing these war crimes, if that's what is found, then the clock is ticking as far as how fast the Israeli military can get to those hostages. They're not going to wait for talks to go on and on and on. Hamas has a very limited time to turn those hostages over.
Yes.
Everything just flies out of control for Hamas.
And they were even saying when they looked at the bodies of these dead hostages that they were tortured. It wasn't like they just killed them in battle and it was quick. They actually were finding out they did torture these hostages. And that's why the urgency to get all of them out at this point.
If I were the commander of the Israeli army, I would be putting absolute total pressure on Hamas from every direction I could. So that gives you an idea of what the thinking is perhaps in Israel.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned something about Nicaragua earlier. I want to
Oh my gosh. We've been fighting communists in Nicaragua since forever, all the way back to President Carter. Well, today we get information that 150 public organizations in Nicaragua, as well as churches, have been banned. So that's a communist takeover of basic public institutions, and the United States isn't going to just look at that and turn their gaze away. So Nicaragua has decided, hey, we want to put ourselves up on closer to Uncle Sam's number one on the list, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. So, and let me, last I want to touch on kind of this, the state of what happens when this election goes through. I think, William, there's going to be a civil war. I don't think because, and I've told you this earlier, that the hatred of the last when a 2016 election, when Trump made it in office, it was horrible. The riots were horrible, and many Congress and senators came forward, like Maxine Waters, and said, "Go get them, hurt these people." Um, there could be, and even Dan Bongino was talking earlier today that he could even himself see a type of civil war, because even Biden mentioned this wasn't going to be an an easy or nice handover if it happens. Um, William, my whole thing is the United States is the only one that's not in the middle of a civil war. Are we next? We possibly could be.
Our real big problem is between when the election is certified and the next president comes into power.
Now, William, if they have, let's say Trump wins, Democrats have a fit, they go into a civil war with us. Now, you said Republicans would really put a biggest prize on them, but that would stop if it ended up being a civil war. We would have to wait until everything was settled out and the war had stopped before the next president could come in. And if Kamala Harris and the Biden administration want to fight out this for 2-3 years, Biden would be in office still. People don't realize that.
That's the theory of the civilian part of the world. Our military people are looking at this and saying we have to have a peaceful transfer of power, and they're not going to wait 3 years.
Well, I hope not. I really hope not.
Now, the brass at the Pentagon may sit on their hands, but the operational commanders are not going to tolerate that. And you can bet that they're all talking quietly behind the scenes now to ensure that the United States has a continuing commander, if you will, that's present and is viable, if you will, for not only the President of the United States, but the leader of the free world. That can't be just left out in the open for some indeterminate amount of time. So all of the civilians think they can drag this out on and on. It's really not tenable that way. Whoever is certified in the election is going to be put in power directly upon, what is it, January 5th or January 7th? I don't know what the exact day is, but that first day in January, the transfer of power is supposed to happen, will happen. Now, if the losing side decides to engage in civil war type activities, whoever that president is will not only have the power of the presidency, but the reserves, the military, the National Guard, and he can also call up militias to be used under the direction of the National Guards in each one of the states. So if groups want to engage in insurrection and say corporations and public entities want to engage in it too, they'll be shut down very quickly, and I would expect a lot of people to be prosecuted.
Well, I hope so. We got all them FEMA prisons. That's what I was thinking.
Well, we got all them FEMA prisons taken over by the U.S. military. They're not going to be just left out there to be some sort of an entity.
I'm hoping, because we could be even looking at a split in this country to where the Democrats could succeed from us. And I've always said, give them California. But, then I have family members going, what? No. All my family and friends live out there, and they're like, no, let them have Michigan or something. And, Michigan is another thing is the Muslims are standing up and saying, you know what? We are tired of being ignored by this administration. And this administration has not helped the Muslim community or the Islamics. And they said, if the Democrats don't change policies to include Muslims or Islamics um, in this whole election, that they won't vote for them. So even the Muslims up in Dearborn, Michigan, are starting to get ruffled feathers, saying, "You haven't done nothing for us. Where do we fit in?" And we look at the DNC convention right now with these Palestinian Muslim um, uh, saying, "Hey, uh, if you're not going to be on our side, then we're not going to vote for you." I mean, what they call the Camilla of death or something like that, because she's killing. They feel their own people. So this is going to be a very strange election, William, I think, because of the Muslims, because of Palestinians. What about the migrants that saying, "Hey, we got here. Now you're shipping me to a city that I'm living on the streets." And
Yeah,
now
there's
they're
going to be a lot
saying
of
they're not going
chaos
to vote for them.
election's over.
Yeah.
And there'll probably be some chaos a few months afterwards. So if you see things starting to get dicey,
Mm-hmm.
my recommendation, unless you're ready to slug it out, is you really need to stay at home.
Yeah.
Stay out of anywhere that could be a threat or is not well controlled.
Yeah, because there's going to be, no matter which party wins, I think there's going to be some riots and there's going to be some protests, no matter who wins.
There's always going to be bad actors.
That's right.
And
that's right.
The point of which those bad actors can act will depend on how divided the government is at the transfer of power.
That's right. Well, William, I think that's it for tonight. We'll be back on Friday for trivia. I'm gonna do a little bit. I think I'm gonna try to do a lifestyle show or some news before, and then break off and then go into trivia. But William, do you have anything left?
Yeah, I just want to talk about the nuclear part.
Okay.
There's no such thing as unlimited nuclear war. Okay, there's no such thing as just tactical nukes. Once the nukes start to fly, they all fly.
Mm-hmm.
So no government in their right mind is going to launch.
That's it. Because they don't want, once it's launched, everybody's destroyed. And that's been the fear.
Terror. It's all about psychological terror or the end of recorded history.
That's it. Well, William, I thank you very much. You're a great co-host, or you're a great host. We're both hosts. So and I think of you as an equal. So everyone, share our shows. Let's get us going now that we're back. Tell family and friends, or even co-workers about our show, and bring them on in, and let's get this going. Also hit the like and the bell, and so you can be told when our shows are on. All right, William, I thank you much. And
thank you for the opportunity.
We will be back on a Friday. I know everybody's excited about trivia, and so am I. So with that, we will see everyone on Friday. Have a great Thursday, and we'll move into Friday with trivia. I thank you much for watching. William, that's it. And we're glad you are watching us, and please share.